Welcome everybody who's just joining. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name's Alex Ogden. I'll be delivering the webinar today. You'll notice there's just a little bit of a question there, a little bit of a task on the slide. If you'd like to, just as we're waiting for a few others to come in until we're pretty sure that no one else will be joining us, feel free to have a go at that task. And then I'd just like you to pick a picture, take a look at it, and think to yourself, what facet of physical education could that picture maybe represent? So you could be thinking about the curriculum, you could be thinking about teaching and learning in PE, you could be thinking about any outcomes that we expect or that we strive for through physical education. And then if there is any brave souls who would like to kind of explain their choice verbally and unmute, then I'd love to welcome a little bit of feedback on that once I've just introduced the title, etc. So have a think of that just for 1 minute. Choose a picture, link it to physical education in some out of the box way, and then we'll hear what people's thoughts are, just to get us thinking before we start. Okay, got 21 people on the call at the moment. It seems to be sticking on that for a while. Oh no, 22, 23. Apologies to those that have heard me talk. I'll say this again when just for these new people that have joined. Hi everybody, if you're just joining us, there's a little bit of a task there on the board just as we wait for other people to come in from the waiting room. Just wanted to take a look at those pictures on the slide there and think carefully. Pick a picture that you think kind of represents a facet of physical education that's quite well. Could be the curriculum, could be something to do within teaching and learning, could be something to do with the outcomes of physical education that we want to achieve. And then if you're willing, I'd love to hear a bit of an explanation of your choice when invited and how out of the box you managed to think, if that's okay. There's 25 now, so they're still coming in. I'll maybe just wait 1 more minute, Dana, before I'll make a start in introducing the session. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here, for your time. I imagine you've had a long day, whether that's remote learning at home or whether you've been in school itself. I've got double vision from sitting in front of my computer all day. We'll get through it together. We'll try and make it as interactive, as fun as possible. Yeah, I'll close down the slide in about 1 minute, guys. So if you are doing this task for me, thanks so much. And I'll just close it down in 1 minute, just to give you a heads up that the pictures will disappear in about 1 minute. Okay, about 30 seconds, and then I'll turn the pictures off. If you are preparing an answer. No right or wrong answer, by the way. It's just all about our thought process. Okay, so I'm just going to flick it on to the next slide now, the title slide. Just have that in the back of your mind. Feel free to, obviously, if you are jotting down a bit of an answer, feel free to do that. And I'll just invite anyone that wants to share in the meantime in a second. Okay, I'll just move us on. Hopefully. There we go. Okay, So my name is Alex Ogden. My details are there on the screen. Welcome everybody today. I'm the Education Manager and PE and School Sport Consultant for Yorkshire Sport Foundation. You may have heard of Yorkshire Sport Foundation before if you attended one of our recent PE conferences for South Yorkshire, then you will have heard of us. We are an active partnership. We are funded by National Lottery and Sport England. We're one of 40 plus active partnerships across the country, and we are here to support schools within our districts, and Yorkshire Sport Foundation covers West and South Yorkshire, so all 9 districts in West and South. And we're here, amongst other things, to work with communities, but also within education and to support schools to have the best PE, school sport and physical activity offer they can. So my role is to work one-to-one with PE subject leaders, head teachers, governors within specific schools, maybe to deliver at PE network meetings, deliver on conferences, work with partners, local partners in districts such as Learn Sheffield, the PESPA Alliance and the Move More Active Schools Group. We're here to support you along with partners in being able to have the best high quality PESPA provision as possible. So if you are hearing about myself and Yorkshire Sport for the first time, do check us out. We're here to support you with everything that you may need. So today we are recording the session. It's going to go on to the Learn Sheffield website. Feel free to have your camera on or off. I want it to be as informal as possible, obviously. I am going to throw a lot of information at you. We only have an hour, a little bit less now, but there will be some kind of I would be really keen to have a little bit of interaction as we go along. So if you are willing to kind of interact verbally or through the chat when prompted, that would be absolutely amazing. Having done this so many times, and you've probably been on the receiving end many times, or maybe even delivered yourself. It's the more informal, the better, really, when it comes to online learning. So. If you can mute yourselves, and then when prompted, if you want to unmute, that's absolutely fine. At the end, we can turn off the recording, and if you want some kind of informal chat at the end, whether that's questions to me or conversation amongst each other, and you've got time and you don't have to shoot off, then I'll be here as well for that. This is like being up here in the office delivering this webinar is like a holiday to Iron Apple for me, because I've got 2 children downstairs being looked after. So the longer I can be up here, the better. So hopefully we can do that. Okay, so we're going to move on over to this slide, and this is the first opportunity, hopefully, for a little bit of interaction. No right or wrong answer to this. If maybe I could ask you to maybe show Dana. Dana from Learn Sheffield is in the background. Hopefully this is okay, Dana. If maybe they make it known to you, they would like to maybe unmute, maybe by kind of raising their virtual hands, or something like that, or maybe feel free to just unmute yourself, and if no one else is talking, then go for it. I wonder if anybody would like to share the picture they chose and explain why they chose that picture and how they linked it to physical education in some way. Anybody like to start off?
I can see Baba's got his hand up.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I can hear me, Alex.
I can, mate. Go for it.
Drawn to a few pictures, actually, as I'm sure a few people would have been. The buffet one especially, but I'm going to go with the ripple or the drop into the ocean. Thinking about it in terms of sort of physical literacy and how that tiny ripple could develop into a wave, and just how sort of becomes autonomous, and we want our children to be sort of autonomous with their own learning and have that purpose and that confidence, and sort of physical literacy gives the path to be able to go and produce or compete or enjoy sort of any sport or any activity. So that's sort of what caught my imagination and where my thoughts were going.
Love that. What a brilliant start. Thanks. I just realised I'm called Isaac. Sorry, guys. That's my little boy from his home learning this morning. That will be the first time it's happened. So I'm Isaac. Yeah, no, that's awesome, mate. Thank you so much. That's a wonderful start. A bit of a ripple effect. Laying the foundations, physical literacy, setting them on their way for a journey, an active lifestyle, hopefully, and enjoying finding their enjoyment within physical activity, whether that's a sport or whether it's a fitness, whatever it may be. and engaging in it for life. That's a great start. Thank you. And I love the fact that you put your camera on as well when you spoke, mate. Thank you for that, because then I think it kind of popped up on my feed. Anyone else like to add to that? Maybe just if we can have time for a couple more, perhaps. Maybe one of the other pictures. So make yourself known if you want to, Dana, or just shout out. I will take enough silence as to move on. Maybe we'll have 10 more seconds for somebody to jump up. Okay, no, all right, just the one then, that's fine, not a problem at all. I won't go through all of these, but a couple of other ideas I had was the banquet, whether that's a lunch banquet or dinner banquet. I thought that represented quite nicely choice, and that might be choice within a lesson, giving pupil choice of how to access a task, choice of equipment, or it could even be the broad offer that we want to really make sure children have in physical education, and making sure they're experiencing a broad range of activities and sports in particular further up into Key Stage 2. So I thought that kind of represented that, but again, there's no right or wrong answer. The balloons, I thought really about inclusion and inclusivity, making sure with all children, obviously being engaged in a task together, but they have different needs, and adapting ourselves and adapting our teaching to that. After I thought a bit of scaffolding, and that might be the scaffolding within the PE curriculum, making sure it's sequenced and progressive, or it could even be supporting each other in a lesson amongst their peers. And then over on the top right, I thought really about kind of empowerment in PE, empowering students to feel motivated and inspire them, maybe go on to be active like sorry, what your name, Mr. Adabola, I'm going to go for today, said earlier. Okay, right, moving on then. Okay, so the content for today, 1 hour isn't very long. It's even less when you've only got 50 minutes left. We'll try to finish on time, guys. It's not very long to include all aspects of high quality physical education. So when planning the session, I was very conscious of three things. There's a lot I wanted to kind of get out there, but I wanted to try to simplify it as much as possible. So firstly, the first of the three things was I wanted to keep COVID out of the conversation. I'm sick of it, you're sick of it, and that's not what we're here to do, is to discuss COVID PE. We have to believe, you know, delivery of COVID PE in your school will look different to another school. That's natural, depending on our health and safety protocols and the route senior leadership have gone down. But we have to believe that teaching and learning of PE is going to be back to normal. And obviously we hope that's sooner rather than later, but hopefully it's going to be in the near future. So I want us to be thinking kind of long-term, that long-term vision, that long-term idea that I want to shine a light on today, rather than short-term thinking. And secondly, the second thing out of three was, I appreciate there's going to be teachers listening to this or watching a recording of it that are new to the PE lead role, maybe very recently this year, maybe yesterday, who knows, but there's also going to be PE leaders who are more experienced and have that frame of reference. So that was on my mind. The third thing that was on my mind was that schools within your school, it might look very different in terms of the PE delivery to another school and how you coordinate it. There's going to be PE leaders sitting here or watching that have enlisted the help of external coaching providers to come in and deliver a large part of the PE curriculum, and therefore maybe individual class teachers are delivering less or have less of a role within the PE delivery. And then there's going to be PE leaders listening who haven't gone down that route and who have support and develop their own teachers and ensure that they are kind of upskilled to deliver effectively themselves on their individual classes. So we're coming at it from different angles. So I've not gone too broad with the content today, and that's intentional. I focused in on a few really important components of high quality PE and aim to try to take you on a bit of a journey through them. So we're going to start with the current landscape of PE and the backdrop, if you like, including the still fresh education inspection framework and Ofsted, obviously. Then we'll move a bit closer to home with high characteristics of a high quality PE curriculum, and included within that will be the importance of planning for well-being and holistic development in PE. And then we'll look at the ingredients of an outstanding PE lesson, which is always useful to explore and to get some ideas around. And one of those ingredients will be kind of assessment for learning strategies, but I'm well aware there has been other webinars or will be uploaded to Learn Sheffield soon, if they haven't already, that's been delivered on assessment in PE. Particularly, I think Helen Stevens, perhaps from Points Learning Network. So with not wanting to kind of replicate anything like that and tread on toes, I've kind of steered away from that as a bit of a separate, but that is there for you to tap into, and maybe Dana can give some more information at the end if necessary. So I've kind of I've focused in on these really, and we'll finish off with some final messages, particularly around how you can perhaps influence senior leaders around the importance of PE and placing it at the heart of your school. So we're going to start off by looking at this word opportunity. Now, as a teacher of many years, I was primary school teacher for 13 years, leader of PE and sport for the same number. And when I sat in staff meetings where we would discuss the asks or expectations of what Ofsted would want, and everything was talk around Ofsted. What do Ofsted want? What can we do? Whether there was an impending visit or not. But everything just seemed a box ticking exercise, if you like. But in the light of the new inspection framework, the message nationally from PE and school sport organisations is that everything we do within PE should be for the students. It starts with our pupils. What do they need? What do our pupils need? And how, as a school, would we like to provide that for them? So there's a real opportunity here that the new framework has presented us when it comes to designing and delivering a curriculum that works for your pupils. And as long as you can justify your own PE curriculum and evidence that it's sequenced, it's progressive, and communicate why you are doing it, just as you would in any other curriculum subject, then Ofsted will be fine with that. And we have to have confidence in that. Now, case in point, I picked up a phone not long ago from a school in West Yorkshire, part of a trust, who sat down and said, we're not happy how PE is being delivered in our schools. We want to redesign it. It's very sport specific, particularly in Key Stage 2, 6 weeks worth of units of sport, 6 weeks. And we're not happy with it. Our children aren't achieving what we want them to. We want to completely reshape it. And they said, how creative can we get with this? How out of the box can we be with this? And they even talked about getting rid of the words PE. Do we call it physical education? Do we call it something else? Do we go down a health-based route? Do we go down a themed route? Okay, or are skills at the heart of it? So they really wanted to revamp it. And that's my message today, is whether you are looking to redesign your PE curriculum from scratch, whether you are happy with your PE curriculum and you're just looking at adapting it maybe or reflecting on it, wherever you are, there's an opportunity here, as long as you can justify why you're doing it. So this is the 4 judgments that you will know so well when it comes to Ofsted and your inspection framework. Now, immediately, with our PE hats on, we're drawn to personal development, and we think, well, that's where PE will sit. That's where it can have the most impact. And of course, that is absolutely right. PE does sit firmly within that. However, what we can't do is ignore the quality of education box on the left-hand side, which is obviously the focus of the whole inspection framework. Now, this isn't me going through Ofsted to say, well, I've just said, actually, let's not do Ofsted. This isn't about ticking boxes for Ofsted. This is about making sure that our physical education curriculum is in line with the whole curriculum philosophy of our school. And it sits alongside that and is as meaningful and as purposeful as the maths curriculum, as the literacy curriculum. So these 3 I's are obviously extremely familiar to you, I do not doubt. But when reflecting or designing at any point your PE curriculum, don't worry too much about those 3 I's. Obviously, it is just Ofsted talk. We're really talking there about intent and what are you trying to achieve for your pupils? How are you going to deliver and monitor this would be your implementation. And there's obviously elements to that underneath. And then how do you know this works? Where's your evidence? What is your evidence? How are you collecting that evidence for the impact? Now, I would also argue heavily that PE in some way can impact positively on every single aspect of that framework on the screen there, no matter how obscure. And I would also say, and this would be an important message for me today, is our aim has to be as PE leaders, as passionate advocates of PE and physical activity, to really put PE at the heart of our school and put it on the map. So if you want to influence senior leaders and governors, I'd be looking in terms of putting PE alongside whole school improvement plans and the impact it can have. I'd be looking to get to grips with this framework really, really deeply and dissect it and understand what it means for your PE curriculum, because it can impact so positively on a school's vision and ethos underneath leadership and management judgment. It can impact on attendance. It can impact on behaviour. It can impact on staff development as we look to upskill and improve staff confidence. So that would be the message to come out of this. Try to get to grips with it and what it means for PE and communicate those messages to senior leaders. Okay, so this is the graphic again, but with a bit of a twist to it, with a bit more of a kind of a PE context, if you like. And intent there down the left, implementation and impact. So looking at, I'm not going to go through all of this, but obviously with our intent, we're looking at the purpose. What is the purpose of PE in your school? What do you want your children to achieve at the end of primary school? How does it prepare them to lead an active life? And then Mr. Adebola kind of touched upon earlier. Implementation and those elements underneath. We need to make sure that staff teaching PE have a solid depth, you know, an understanding of well, that allows pupils to make progress essentially in the subject. And any staff lacking confidence need to be identified and supported. And that could be done through audits on knowing their kind of specialties or where they're kind of lacking confidence and supporting them through the process. Assessment for learning would fall under that as well. This should be informing all planning and teaching, even within the PE lesson itself. Schemes of work and lesson plans adapted as a result. And progress should obviously always include not just the physical skills, but we're looking at the kind of holistically, the cognitive, the social and the health outcomes. And the impact, as I said before, how do we know this works? I'm not going to go into kind of too much of that there and get bogged down with that. I just wanted to touch on a couple more things in terms of that PE context. Before we just look at the language of the curriculum, I just wanted to highlight, again, this is very much a national message, particularly from the Association for Physical Education. We need to be really clear the differences between PE, physical activity and school sport, because the workforce in schools around PESPA has grown. It's gone from just teachers delivering PE to obviously to external companies and maybe coaches coming in and to health and well-being staff and agendas, and it's grown. And often those three terms, PE, PA and SS, are used kind of interchangeably, but they are different in their purpose and their delivery. So I just wondered, as a little bit of interaction here, if you could maybe just pop into the chat box, first of all, a quick sentence or a few words perhaps that you think define PE. We'll deal with PE first. Pop it into the chat box if that's okay. I'll try to bring it up so I can see it. So a definition of physical education for yourself, or just a few words. Let me see. Oh, thanks, Chantal. I've just got your message about the camera issues. If I don't see any comments on the chat box, then I will kind of give a definition myself, and then I'll ask for physical activity. It's not easy. How would you define physical education in a sentence or two, or a few words? Some sound bites, if you like. Oh, thanks, Chantal. PE to be taught a skill or technique, learning objective with a measured outcome. Adam, development of physical skills alongside mental traits such as perseverance and teamwork. Great start, guys, thank you. You can think kind of really simplistic with this. Okay, so maybe start thinking about physical activity if you want to get a head start with that. But PE essentially is, we're talking about the national curriculum, physical education national curriculum. Thank you, Mr. Vickers. And a subject that is timetabled to be taught to all pupils each week, ideally by a qualified teacher, and for 2 hours per week. That's, I've not even touched upon all those brilliant kind of words that are coming in there. I've gone really, the definition of it is really, really simple, but it's important that we lay that out because sometimes that's not always specific. Physical education is a national curriculum. It's every child's right. It's mandatory that children must receive it. We've moved on to physical activity. Well done, Chantel. You're on the ball. Sticker to Chantel. She's moved on to physical activity, an activity that is physical. Wonderful. Okay. Anyone else would like to offer any examples for physical activity? Again, maybe don't think kind of too intellectually necessarily for this one. Movement that uses energy. Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Range of physical activity, movement using fundamental skills. Love it. Okay, good. So we've had a few there. So physical activity is the means in which PE is delivered. The physical activity is the means, but it can be any form of physical activity. It could be structured, it could be unstructured, and physical activity can take place at any time during the day. PE is timetabled. Physical activity can take place at any point during the day, break times, lunch times, before school, after school, within lessons. And it can be led not just by a teacher or a qualified coach, it can be led by teaching assistants, it can be led by lunchtime staff, parents, playground leaders. Okay, so again, looking at it quite simplistically, but very different to PE. School sport then, guys, thanks very much for people contributing. School sport, how does that differ? Again, maybe don't think too intellectually, just in simplistic form. What is school sport? How is it delivered? Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Any competitive physical activity held within the school? Sport that might be set outside of the curriculum? Thanks, Mr. Adabola. Okay. Learning beyond the curriculum in school settings. Thank you, Ms. Shaw. So when we talk about schools' introduction to sport and teams, thanks, Chantel, via school and clubs and things like that. Thank you very much. When we talk about school sport, we're looking at competitive physical activity, essentially. And it's structured through the national governing body.
So, for example, if there's an individual.
Oh, sorry, Sue. Thank you for muted. So it's structured through the national governing body format, and it's always appropriate to the stage of a child's development and where the learners are at. But it could be delivered by a teacher. It could be delivered by a qualified coach in a particular sport. It might be school games organizer led if you've engaged with that network. So again, who is delivering it is different in all three. Okay, so I would just wonder then, again, a question to take away for you is, as a PE leader in your school, could you confidently say that your staff, either those who are teaching PE, those who are working alongside a coach within PE lessons, or those who maybe don't have a PE teaching responsibility at the moment for any reason, could you confidently say that they knows those subtle differences? Could you confidently say your head teacher knows those subtle differences? And how can you communicate this to them so it's really clear across everybody in your school, no matter what their role is, where they would fit into it, where their role would come within PE, physical activity, and school sport? Okay, I'm just going to minimize the chat there for now. Thank you so much again for the interaction, guys. That's brilliant. It really helps. I'll just see if it's going to, oh, there we go. Okay, so we're just going to delve in a little bit more detail with the language here. And I always feel like I should apologize for this kind of activity. But again, in the interest of the fact that some of you may be looking at this for the 1000th time, some of you may be looking at it for the 5th, 6th, 7th time. And I always think it's a useful activity. So I always feel I should apologize for it, but I'm hoping it's useful. And you may well have done it before, but this is a national curriculum for PE. Obviously, we're looking at Key Stage 1 here. I just want you to take a look at the first paragraph. Take a look at those first few sentences, just that first paragraph. And could you just pick out some keywords, and you can type them in the chat box for me. You don't have to do it verbally. Just type in the chat box the keywords for you that, in your opinion, should form the basis of your intent or your implementation when we're talking about the curriculum. And just type them into the box. So it just might be one word, it might be two together. Really important keywords that will form the basis for your PE curriculum. And then we'll get some feedback from that as I read them out. I'll just try and get the chat up again. I can see as we go along. So just that first paragraph, guys. Competent, confident, thank you. Confident in the ABCs, challenging situations, challengings come up again. Just give it maybe 10 or so more seconds before we feedback. Fundamental movement, thank you. Looking a bit rosy cheeked here. Okay, we'll stop it there then. Thank you so much for contributing and for having a think about that one. I'm just going to scroll on to the next slide. Okay, I picked out a few here, many of which, in fact, maybe all of which have been mentioned just in the chat there. But straight off the bat, what you will notice within the Key Stage 1 curriculum is there's no mention of sports. There's no mention of even the specific sports or the word sport. The focus is on what some of you have already highlighted, fundamental movement skills. So we're laying the foundations in order for pupils to then be able to apply those movement skills, your agility, your balance, your coordination, your locomotion skills, to a range of different activities. Because the worst thing we can do is have children entering year 3 or year 4, engaging in a sport for the first time, perhaps within a unit, hopefully not a sport-specific unit, rather than a sport that they're practicing perhaps in that lesson or with a skill attached to it. The worst thing is that they can't access that skill or that game or that sport because of what's come before, and there's a gap there in their learning. So we've got to get these skills up there at an early age, and that's what we're trying to lay out. But as they move through the key stages, we're going to expose them to more and more modified games. Again, as others have highlighted, cooperation, cooperative activities, and challenging situations. Again, referencing other learning domains. We're talking about the whole child, social and emotional well-being as well, okay, as well as the cognitive. Just moving on then on to Key Stage 2, if you could do the same for me. Just maybe focus, once more on the first paragraph for me. Thank you so much. I'll bring the chat up again just so I can see, hopefully, here we go. People are putting. Collaboration has just come up. Broader range, apply, develop. Competing, evaluate success, evaluate, own success, sequences of movement. Thanks so much, guys. Feel free to stop there. Wonderful. Great contributions again. Always is in Sheffield. Whenever I do something through Sheffield, there's always great contributions. It's brilliant. So this is what I kind of popped in there. Again, some of which have been mentioned, and I cheated a little bit and included a bit of language down in the second paragraph, so to speak. So you'll notice in Key Stage 2, we now have a reference to sport as we move through Key Stage 2. And that's really in the interests of broadening and providing as many opportunities as possible for pupils to apply those fundamental skills in Key Stage 1. There is no obligation to be teaching and delivering a sport-specific curriculum. 6 weeks of basketball, 6 weeks of football, 6 weeks of cricket. We need to be moving away from this, and it's kind of a bit of a hot topic constantly within PE, in that we need to be moving away sport-specific curriculums, and there are still many schools teaching in this way. And we need to be really thinking about the skill and applying that to different games, different competitive games. The competitive games and modified, we're going to come on to a little bit, particularly within lessons and how you can modify them. But that's the main message. It's not to say that it's, oh, my internet connection is unstable. Hopefully you can still hear me. Dana, just let me know if I'm not coming through. Thank you. So it's not to say that there isn't a place, obviously, for sport within the curriculum, but we just need to make sure that it's not the focus and it's the driving force of it. Okay, going to move us on. Now, again, something that some of you, more experienced PE leads of you, may be very familiar with. Again, if you're familiar with AFP's publications, they have some wonderful resources, one of which is their Head, Heart and Hands poster. But I really wanted to highlight the importance of this model because it is absolutely crucial and should underpin, again, the curriculum delivery. We know PE is the perfect vehicle to develop crucial skills and attributes required for the modern world. We know that. Not everyone in our school might not know that, but we do. And we need to make sure they know. And the effective delivery of the national curriculum ensures that we're developing them into thinking physical beings. So we're head, doing physical beings. So that's where the hands would come in. And then we're also impacting upon behavioural change of children. And the heart would be the reference to that. So again, thinking, hopefully as we're going along today, you're thinking about your own PE curriculum and the delivery and the current intent and the current implementation. So just be thinking at the moment currently about this head, heart and hands model. Does your curriculum develop children's ability to make simple decisions, being aware of what they need to improve? And it might be your own teaching or what you've observed in other lessons, be that a coach or a class teacher. Does it encourage them to evaluate, recognize their own success? I'm talking about those thinking skills here. Does it give them the opportunity to use a broad range of skills in different ways and link them together to make actions and sequences? When we're looking at behavior change, so heart, are we enhancing pupils' confidence and motivation to participate in activities? That's why I love Mr. Adebola's answer earlier, because it's coming up a few times now in this presentation about motivating children to participate in physical activity and the wider community, and empowering them to lead healthy lives. So are we doing that? Is that at the forefront of our planning? When it comes to the physical being and the hands, are we progressing fundamental movement skills as we've touched upon? The ABCs, are we exposing children to competitive, and that can be against themselves and the personal best, or against others in group situations or in team games? Are we exposing them to cooperative physical activities in a range of challenging situations? So there's a number of things to consider in that head, heart, hands model. There's a link to the AFB poster there. I believe I can pass the slides on to Dana in the future, so you hopefully may gain access to those. And there's a link there if you've not seen it before. Moving towards the end of our kind of focus on the curriculum, if you like. This is a national curriculum blueprint graphic. You may have seen it before. It sits on the Youth Sport Trust website. Very useful one. I very like it. Nice and simple to look at it and to dissect. Now, this blueprint helps to shine a light really on what physical education is. Obviously, it goes from EYFS up to Key Stage 4. We're just looking at up to Key Stage 2 today. So what it is, what it should look like, and how the subject can then develop the whole person. So that personal development. Again, going back to the Ofsted judgment areas. So important. Educating children through the physical. So it's much more than teaching physical skills and sports. We're helping learners essentially to understand their body and how through the physical they can develop social skills and thinking skills and emotional skills. And again, you'll notice in this curriculum blueprint, no reference to sport here. You're looking at the EYFS, you've got heavy weighting towards physical competencies. So developing that physical literacy and their fundamental movement skills. So that's heavily within EYFS and Key Stage 1. But as you move through Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, there's a bit more of a balance between physical competence and physical activity as we begin to expose them to these modified competitive games and sports as well as part of that. This is a little bit of a recent development that you may or may not be aware of, but nationally, AFP and sports leaders have come together to produce a level 4 wellbeing through PE course, and that's being rolled out now across the country over the coming weeks. We at Yorkshire Sport are a centre for it, and we can tutor and deliver that course. So if you are interested in the level 4 wellbeing through PE course, it's available for all QTS teachers of PE. It might just be a class teacher teaching 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week. It might be a PE leader who is delivering all the PE, but it's for QTS teachers of PE. Feel free to get in touch with me. I can give you details about that. But it's really talking about how we can plan for well-being through our PE curriculum. And so this graphic hopefully just kind of starts the cogs turning really in your brain about how we can promote well-being through PE. Again, linking back to those 3 I's. But could you include some well-being learning outcomes? Are there any now in your current curriculum? Could you include some? Could you add some in? Could you adapt it? Linked to social and emotional needs. When looking at the implementation of putting well-being maybe at the heart of your curriculum, think about the learning environment. Now, some aspects of the learning environment we may not be able to change, the weather being one, particularly at this time of year. But there are things within our control when we look at the learning environment. How can we make sure, therefore, that this environment is the best it possibly can be, and to allow children to be positive and to give them a positive experience, because that's what's going to improve their well-being through PE is positive experiences. So simple things. Could you make sure that they're hydrated? Could you make sure the space is appropriate? Do they need to be outside? Should they be inside for this? And what will help them to achieve and learn best? Do they need to be outside? Is the equipment appropriate? Would come under that as well for them to thrive emotionally. So we're talking there about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, really, and going back to that. Secondly, we've got the curriculum. So one of the main outcomes should be to lay foundations, obviously, for children to enjoy physical activity on some level and lead active and healthy lives. So looking at your vehicles for learning, your activities within your curriculum, do they link to pupil motivations, success or interest? Is your curriculum informed on what pupils want and what they've expressed to you through interviews or through surveys or through audits? What would they like to see in the curriculum? What do they feel that they would enjoy? Might be something they're doing outside of school that you can bring into the curriculum. Again, it's going to promote positive experiences if we're using that as a bit of a guide. Can we link our curriculum to the 5 ways of well-being? Could we use them as themes? across the half terms. The 5 ways being connect, give, learn, be active, take notice, etc. And finally, the pedagogy itself and the ethos and the envelopes, physical education, if you like, is that promoting pupil well-being? Where are there any opportunities within the curriculum for peer coaching, problem solving, collaborating, experiencing failure, taking on leadership roles, etc. And finally, the impact. It's difficult to measure well-being. It is. It's because it's so subjective. But there are tools that either you could devise or kind of create yourself in order to capture pupil well-being and provide that evidence. It could simply be teacher observations and notes, observing of behaviours within a lesson, or in other or within other areas of physical activity. It could be to interview children specifically, or just gather some anecdotal evidence. But how can you put in place some measures to kind of capture that evidence, if you like? So this is something that's going to grow and grow, not just because of COVID, obviously it's important regardless, but when we look at the children re-entering our education system fully to its full extent, then this is so important right now more than ever, really. How can we promote well-being through PE? I did pop down a bit of an active task because we've been talking for a long time. I've been talking for a long time. I'm just looking at the time. It's 17 minutes past 4. Looking at the rest, what we've kind of got to do, I think I'm going to kind of move on from this. And then if we've got time, maybe we can do it at the end as a bit of a fun finisher. But hopefully we've got 15 more minutes in us to move on, and there will be a bit more interaction. Come up with this now. So we're moving kind of. We've had a look at the bigger picture, set the scene a little bit with the curriculum in terms of Ofsted and the inspection framework, the whole school picture, coming down into the curriculum itself, and now we're coming down even further into outstanding PE lessons and what that looks like. So I wonder again if we go for the chat box rather than verbally, because it seems like we've got a good bit of interaction going on that. I made the point at the beginning of the presentation that, you know, when designing your own PE curriculum, we should have pupils' needs at the heart of it. Now, we should be looking at the demographics of our pupils, their attitudes to learning, their physical competencies when they enter reception, age 4, what our staff confidences are and abilities, what our environment is, and shaping our curriculum around those needs, really. And that helps to justify why you're doing. But we do know why you're doing it. But we do know if Ofsted turn up and it's a PE deep dive, they're going to be wanting to see lessons. So you can have all that justification, but we need to make sure that what they're going to be observing is outstanding. And so we need to be looking at that a little bit. So we know Ofsted outstanding criteria in terms of a lesson. You know what that kind of looks like across the board. I just wonder if we could just pop into the chat box now, thinking about a PE lesson and thinking about the Ofsted criteria, if you like, for outstanding lessons. What might that look like in a PE lesson? What might be happening in a PE lesson that is considered outstanding if you are observing a lesson alongside that inspector? Please just pop it into the chat box. Could be anything at all. And I'll just give us maybe 30 seconds to bob some down before I reveal some. Adaptability, engagement, progression, a lesson that builds on previously learned skills. Thanks so much, those understanding. Good, 10 more seconds. Assessment, yeah, evidence of assessment, using assessment, organised, chaos. Love it. Well planned, bespoke. Evaluating performance. Thanks so much, guys. We'll leave it there. Peer assessment, wonderful, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to reveal some of these that I've jotted down. Oh, hang on. Is it going to come up? There we go. Okay, so giving praise, regular feedback, and then motivating and inspiring children to achieve their personal best. The lesson's organised, well planned, so children can make outstanding progress. Teachers are using subject knowledge to show pupils how to develop their physical skills and apply them to different activities. Questioning, so important within the lesson. Checking understanding through questions, encouraging them to evaluate the performance, helping us to really get an idea and measure the children's knowledge of their own skills and awareness of their own ability. Challenge, are pupils challenged in the lesson? Are they encouraged to work their hardest, even if they're tiring physically and that's noticeable? Are they motivated to find new ways to kind of second gear, if you like, to improve their performance? Pace needs to be rapid, just as in any lesson. There needs to be some momentum. Time is maximized to engage all pupils in vigorous physical activity. Lining up in lines, waiting for their turn in lines of 5, 6, or 7. Can we minimize that? Is there a way of adapting the task to minimize waiting time so that they're active as much as possible in the lesson itself? What equipment are we using? What resources are available? Do they have a choice of resources? Is there a wide range of resources to enhance their learning, their performance, and be as inclusive as possible? And then assessment. Are we using the assessment to track pupil progress and data? Is it used by teachers and coaches to plan further challenges to support pupils in their learning? And I've just bobbed stars next to the kind of the assessment strategies, if you like, of that could sit within a PE lesson. That's what the stars there are for, the kind of AFL references, if you like. Oh, we've got one more presentation. So our pupils given the opportunity to present their ideas, to receive feedback from their peers, to give feedback to their peers. Again, another really important AFL strategy, I would argue. Zooming on, these are just a few tips, again, that I've witnessed myself in PE lessons, that I've seen across Yorkshire, some really nice little tips that I kind of collate. Now, we know that at the moment, I imagine a lot of schools are asking their students to come and be dressed within physical education already. And I think a lot of schools, my understanding is a lot of schools are going to continue that in the future because it maximizes time. And there's no messing around before the lesson. It helps behavior management. We're not having to separate the girls and the boys necessarily, and that whole kind of transition time. So it's really good preparation for that. Music to support engagement. It's wonderful for not only engagement, but for behavior as well, because you can attach, obviously, certain instructions for the children or actions for them to do when they hear a certain type of music. So it's great for behavior. And it's obviously encouraging them to link their actions and sequences and things like that. It really does contribute positively to a really nice atmosphere, particularly when they come in. I find that's a really nice one. The environment, be prepared and resource. Use outside when possible, but always be thinking, why am I going outside? Is the need that, is it just because there's a little bit more space? Or there are other reasons for it. Can I bring them inside, or why am I inside? Can I be outside? What's my reason for that? So really consider your environment, and is that going to achieve 100% engagement? Use of screen time and footage. We've become superstars, I imagine. We've become superstars in terms of PE at home, whether that's you delivering PE at home to students or filming yourself and then sending it to parents to do with kids. So let's kind of use this momentum now and use technology a little bit more within lessons when we go back, whether that's to get something instantly on the board that children can discuss and get feedback on. It might be something you filmed in that lesson that you can just transfer up onto there, or it might be something from the previous lesson. And then celebrating success, small or large. And that seems like a really kind of, obvious one, that. And of course we do that, of course we do it, but it's so important in particular with PE, I believe, and to share any success, no matter how small or large, and the impact can be huge. So just a few tips there. Looking now on, we've got about just over 5 minutes. So I want to now talk about inclusion, which is absolutely vital if we are going to ensure that all children can access the curriculum, the PE curriculum in our school. And I would again stress the need for any teacher of PE in your school to be aware of the inclusion spectrum and to consider it within their delivery. So it's there for you. You will receive these slides as well. So I won't go into too much detail on this, but I would like to focus on the modified approach of the inclusion spectrum in particular. Everyone does the same activity, but the rules, equipment, and area are adapted to promote inclusion. That's what I'd like to focus on in this next slide here. You may have heard of the STEP principle before. You may be using it. You may be an absolute expert on it. You may have never heard of the STEP principle before. But when you look at it, it is really quite simple, but so effective. So this is the STEP principle is a great way to modify your games. Space, time, task, equipment, and people. I won't read them all out. I would like to draw your attention to a video here on the left, and I'm going to promote a gentleman called Niall O'Brien. You may have come across him, who knows, particularly if you're on Twitter. Niall is a consultant for us at Yorkshire Sport, as well as being the PE leader at Academy St James in Bradford. He has, if you are on Twitter, please do follow him and the PE account as well, because you will see so many amazing videos that demonstrate the STEP principle. And this is one here on the left. What I'd like you to do, guys, is just watch this very quick video. I think it's only about 20 seconds long. And just think, how has Niall, the teacher in this lesson, what elements of the STEP principle has he used? He might not have used them all, but what do you think he's considered when he's planned this lesson? Which elements of the STEP principle are obvious? And then I'll just ask for some feedback afterwards. You can hear this. Okay, so I think this was in a bit of a net and wall activity. Okay, it was told it was short. I'll just play it one more time. Okay, we'll use the chat again, just in the interest of maybe, because I appreciate that that's probably the most comfortable for people to do. Could you just pop in the chat? It might just be you might just put space and then just your reason why. You might put time and then your reason why, or task. Just what's obvious that's been used with this task. If that's okay. I'll bring the chat up and just communicate what's been being written. Okay, we've got a first few. Equipment. Oh, we've got a few here. Oh, two let's look, right? Brilliant. Keep them coming, keep them coming. Equipment, the foam on the sides of the table to help keep the ball in play. Equipment again, adapted for individuals. Equipment again, so it seems that E is a real focus. Partner is a role model, so people, somebody suggested. Task, somebody suggested adapted so everyone can develop and potentially have success. Space, each have their own table, and space has come up twice there. Brilliant, guys. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Absolutely. You're all absolutely right. It's very difficult to look at maybe time. We just don't know that really based on that video. But every other element of the STEP principle, the S, the task, space, task, equipment, and people, has been referenced, and you're all absolutely right. Just gets the juices flowing a little bit about tasks and how we can adapt them. All involved. Thank you, Sharon. Wonderful. I'm just going to move it on now to further up the key stages. Oops, oh, hang on. There we go. There we go. Okay, so as you can tell, children a little older now into key stage towards upper key stage 2. I'm going to play the video again. How has the activity been moved on in relation to the STEP principle? And what's in the thought process here, do you think? So same question for this video.
Careful.
Again, pop it in the chat box as you see it. Feel free to not wait till the video is finished. Has there been any adaptations, and what part of the STEP principle do they link to? Okay, we've got the equipment, smaller ball, good, well spotted. A larger playing surface to make it slightly more difficult. Thank you very much. I'll just wait for any more to come in. People, some playing in pairs, some still in a trio. Yes, good spot, well done. I wondered if anybody kind of be looking into the background. Yeah. Amazing, I'll just wait a few more seconds. Okay, and we'll finish it there. Inclusive to all, thank you. Wonderful, good, okay. So you spotted there how the activity has been moved on, again, linking it back to the STEP principle, in particular, kind of the equipment use, smaller ball, make it a little more difficult. adding another table, and the groupings as well are changing depending on the children who are involved. Wonderful. Thanks so much, guys. So, STEP principle, are you using it in school, in your school? Are teachers aware of it? And how can you communicate that message or explore a little bit more? Okay, we are very close to this whistle-stop high-quality physical education webinar. This is a little bit selfish of me in terms of just for my a little bit of feedback for me to take forward in what aspects of the presentation or the webinar that resonated with you, in the hope that always in the aim of looking to improve content, particularly within an hour session, because it's very difficult to kind of look at what to choose. Could you just please just pop down in the chat box anything that kind of made you think, anything that you would like to going to find out more about. You might have heard something for the first time, or you're going to find out about that, or one maybe immediate action that you're going to take away. There's kind of 3 things there, and they'll come in at different times, I'm sure, because you'll write one and then somebody else will write something. But as long as it's down there on the chat box, that would be brilliant. So I'll just give you just maybe 1 minute. You might not put all 3 down. It might just be one of them. But if you could pop some things in there, that would be great. I'll just give you 1 minute to do that, guys, before we finish things off. Take a look at the chat, see what's coming up. Okay. Skills versus, okay, so the skills versus sport concept, inclusion spectrum, STEP adaptations, wonderful. So glad that's a bit of an action for some people. So effective. I'm just trying to scroll through these. Teaching the skills, not the sport. How to share in these times effectively. Inclusion spectrum, it's come up a few times, wonderful. Scope to move PE away from sport-focused sequences. Hadn't appreciated the difference between PE, physical activity, school sport. Thank you so much, it's great. It's always hard to know whether to kind of include those messages, but it is a vital one. And that poster from AFPI is a great one, so do download that from the link. STEP made me think of how to adapt activities to encourage engagement. Wonderful. Again, if you want examples of that, please do get in touch. If you are not on Twitter and able to kind of follow now on that account. Sharing physical activity, PE, school sport messages with all staff. Put up a poster in the staff room. Great idea. Great idea. Posters in the staff room. PE curriculums in the staff room. PE and sport premium plans and action plans in the staff room. Working documents, ownership, whole school ownership. So important. Great idea. Well-being in PE. Thank you. Focus on skills. Ensuring a skills-based approach across the school. Wonderful. Share and discuss with the lead and head teacher. Yeah, absolutely, very important. Getting the whole school on board. Skills with sport, sharing STEP with colleagues, inclusive. Amazing. Keep them coming in. That's brilliant, guys. Hopefully, I'll be able to, before we close up, Dana, I'll be able to copy and paste those answers. That'll be amazing. Okay, if you have literally got 2 more minutes, we'll finish with just some final messages. So yeah, an hour's session, we could spend all day just talking about the STEP principle. We could spend all day just talking about the curriculum, but I really just wanted to focus on those 3 things. So the main messages for me are these. If you are looking to design your curriculum from scratch, rip it up like that example that I gave from a school currently, or even that you're just wanting to adapt it because you don't feel it's really meeting the needs of your pupils, then look at the framework, the inspection framework. How does it align with that? How does it align with the whole school approach, curriculum, philosophy as well? Focus on the needs of your pupils and staff. Due diligence. If you are looking at improving your PE curriculum, don't just jump into purchasing a PE scheme of work. That PE scheme of work, although there are some amazing ones out there, and if you need any support in signposting to those, that's what I'm here for as well. But although they're amazing, some of them might not suit your school. So really look at your school's needs, the environment, the staff, the pupil. Then think, right, we need some resource. I like the skill progression in this one, or whatever it might be, and then beef up your curriculum, if you like, with that scheme of work. Move away from sport-specific curriculums, focus on skill development, range of activities exposure, align it with curriculum philosophy, try to be an advocate for PE. So include senior leaders and governors if you are looking at your curriculum in the process. So you want this to align with whole school priorities. How can we do that? And collaborate with them on it. Ensure the curriculum lessons are inclusive, STEP principles mentioned on there, and developing knowledge and awareness of your staff on all the things discussed. Okay. I've just finally just put a little bit of a slide there in terms of the actual presentation, the things that I've referenced. So there are posters and information on the AFP website. There are links there to all of those. So feel free to download there. The Safe Practice in PE is a publication down at the bottom. It's an essential for every school, particularly at in these times. So they're there for you. And obviously the Youth Sport Trust as well has a whole range of primary PESPA resources. You know, hopefully, you know where to go to locally in terms of the Active Schools group and your SSPs and the networks that you have there who can support you. As during the first lockdown, way back in March last year, I led on a national campaign with my team at Yorkshire Sport. We engaged the support of AFP and Youth Sport Trust, and we were endorsed by the Department for Education with the This Is PE campaign. If you may have heard this and you may be using this currently, but it's essentially a resource for parents to teach PE at home. So there are 26 videos on that link. The videos are delivered by PE teachers from across the country. So we recruited PE teachers from across the country to film themselves in their own home on progressive activities and to really get the messages home to parents about what PE is, because many will not understand what physical education is. So it's really ramming home that message, particularly in light of obviously Joe Wicks and the body coach, who's doing some amazing things around getting children active, but it's physical activity, it's not PE. So this is where these videos come in. So they're completely free. There's a YouTube channel. Feel free to include them on any links to home learning, or if you want an activity for the children in your school, whether it's reception or year 6 to do that week, then there's loads of videos to choose from. They are there for you to use, and hopefully you'll enjoy those. I will shut up now. Can I just say a huge thank you after a long day for you two to be here. I really do appreciate it. That's a really good turnout considering I think there were around 40 that signed up, so 27 was a great turnout. Best of luck for the rest of for the school closures. I know there's plenty of children in school. You're doing a fantastic job on behalf of Yorkshire Sport, and we're here if you need us at all. And those are my details there if you want to take a snapshot of it. I'll leave it there. You are, as I said, this is recorded. It will go up on the Learn Sheffield website in the coming days, and so be sure to check it out. I will sit here informally if anybody does want to stay on the call and ask me about anything in particular and have an informal chat. I will wait with Dana for a few minutes. So I am here if you want to unmute. I'll stop screen sharing. And